You're listening to the Wrestle Havoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the Wrestle Havoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes, right here on the Wrestle Havoc Podcast, here to review Friday Night SmackDown from June 9th, 2023. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the SmackDown review. Of course, the big thing is the big decision that Jey Uso has to make, whether he's siding with his brother Jimmy Uso or is he siding with the Bloodline. Also, they granted him the keys to the kingdom, and they offered him a title match against Austin Theory for the United States Championship, for Roman Reigns grooming him to be the next tribal chief of the Bloodline. We're going to be talking about that, as well as we had a lot of Money in the Bank qualifying matches. Both Money in the Bank ladder matches are actually stacking up to be really good matches, and I'm actually definitely excited to see what we're going to be seeing in the Money in the Bank ladder match, of course, as we head towards the actual pay-per-view coming up in London, England at the O2 Arena, as well as Asuka's championship presentation. Yes, she was given a new WWE Women's Championship. They've ditched the Raw and SmackDown women's title names, and now they're just going to be called, at least Asuka's going to be called, the WWE Women's Championship, and most likely Rhea Ripley's title is going to be the Women's World Heavyweight Championship or the Women's World Championship. We're going to see what they do there. But Asuka did get a brand new championship, and to no surprise, Charlotte Flair, as soon as they unveiled that title, Charlotte Flair came out. I'm going to be talking about Charlotte Flair as well, since WWE has booked a match 3 weeks' time, 3 weeks from tonight in London. It's going to be Asuka versus Charlotte Flair for the WWE Women's Championship. But we got a lot of things to talk about regarding Friday Night SmackDown. But before I talk about everything regarding Friday Night SmackDown, make sure to like and subscribe to the Wrestle Havoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the Wrestle Havoc Podcast is also available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the Wrestle Havoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. Plus, if you guys missed it, the AEW Dynamite review is up on the channel. We talk about MJF and Adam Cole going to a verbal back and forth battle, and it looks like, knowing what's going to happen this Wednesday on Dynamite, we're going to be getting an eliminator match regarding MJF and Adam Cole, which honestly I do not think it's the right decision to make. Also, I talk about whether it's a little bit too early for an Adam Cole and MJF feud. We're going to be talking a lot about that and much more on the Dynamite review. So if you guys have missed the AEW Dynamite review, the link will be in the description below. Also, if you guys haven't noticed, AEW Collision is coming up June 17th, and that means that the Wrestle Havoc Podcast is going to be covering AEW Collision. Of course, AEW Collision is going to be AEW's second 2-hour primetime show, and it's going to be debuting Saturday, June 17th at the United Center, in which we have the return of CM Punk. CM Punk is going to be making his first AEW appearance since All Out last September, in which you already know what happened over there. But Collision's going to feature a trios match, and it's going to be featuring CMFTR taking on Samoa Joe and Bullet Club Gold's Switchblade Jay White and Juice Robinson. I'm going to be coming on this show and covering AEW Collision coming June 17th, so be on the lookout for the Collision reviews. All right, let's get on with Friday Night SmackDown. The show kicks off hot. It immediately kicks off with Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa in the ring. Mr. Paulie Dangerously, the wise man, has the microphone and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman." But as soon as he does that introduction, Jey Uso's music plays, or the Usos' music plays, and Jey Uso comes out. Jey is in the ring. We get a bunch of Uso chants by the crowd, and Jey Uso stated on the microphone, he let a lot of things slide, right? But stabbing your big brother in the back is something you don't do, Solo. I don't know if I should forgive you tonight, but say what you need to say. And then Paul Heyman gets the microphone, and he states, and I quote, "You know, he has this all wrong. Here's why. All of this situation going on here, it's not Solo's fault. It's not his fault. It's not even Jey's fault. It is all Jimmy Uso's fault. Because Jimmy Uso made up his own mind, and not just for himself, but Jimmy made up his mind for you," pointing at Jey Uso. Paul then pulls back Solo because it looks like Solo Sikoa is just going to beat the shit out of Jey Uso. After that, Paul says he is not a physical threat. He is opening his heart out. When Jimmy kicked the tribal chief, did he ask him about that? Was Jey Uso in on that? He pulled the trigger for him and you because he's your older brother. But let's be honest, Jimmy always resented him because Jimmy is on something that he isn't. Jimmy doesn't like the fact that Roman Reigns wants to groom you, Jey Uso, the right-hand man, to be the next tribal chief. That's your future, that's your destiny, and that's your fate. That is what it's going to be. And it was never going to be Jimmy, and he resented him ever since. You see, Jey, there's booing because they don't know the truth, and he will prove the truth to him. Tonight, on the tribal chief's behalf, he sets up a match for him to become the next tribal chief. Tonight, he brings gold back to the bloodline, and it isn't tag team gold. Because of Jimmy, there's no more tag team in WWE known as the Usos. He didn't want it this way, but he will bring home to the bloodline. Tonight, the right-hand man, Jey Uso, will defeat Austin Theory for the United States Heavyweight Championship. His path as a singles champion starts tonight. It starts by him beating Austin Theory, and then the tribal chief will embrace him and groom him. That someday, when the time is right, Jey Uso will become the next tribal chief. But he needs his answer now. And Paul Heyman gives the mic to Jey Uso. We get a bunch of Uso chants by the crowd. Jey then says he takes that challenge for the U.S. title, G. And Paul says, "We have a deal." And he offers a handshake after that. And then Jey Uso immediately replies, he thinks about it. "I will get back to you on that," and leaves. Overall thoughts on this opening segment when it came to SmackDown. Now, we knew this past Monday on Raw when Paul Heyman appeared in that backstage segment that Jey Uso needed to make a decision after the events of last Friday night when Roman Reigns basically swerved us all and Solo Sikoa ended up hitting the Samoan spike on Jimmy Uso, basically excluding Jimmy Uso from the bloodline. This has been nothing but pure perfection. I've constantly gloated about the bloodline, but really the importance about the bloodline, and I stated this every week, is that the supporting characters, not just Roman Reigns, but everybody else included in the faction has a key role. Jey Uso was that first person that had that key role, dating back when Roman Reigns first turned heel back in late, like right around the summer of 2020. And then, of course, he had those two matches with Jey Uso, primarily that I Quit match inside Hell in a Cell, in which, Jimmy Uso came in and Roman Reigns applied that submission on Jimmy Uso. You guys get the story. But Jimmy Uso was always, as Paul Heyman stated, groomed for this position as the next tribal chief. Now, this is actually very, very, very interesting because he flat out told us, hey, man, Jimmy Uso is going to be a big singles star. And that is what is only going to happen to Jey Uso. This whole storyline right here is going to do nothing but wonders for Jey Usos. And honestly, don't get me wrong, man. Jey Uso could possibly set up a position to challenge Roman Reigns for the undisputed title. Now, when could that be? I have absolutely no idea. But Jey Uso getting set up for that main event position, in a way, kind of starts on this show, and they definitely showed it very, very, very well. Now, are they going to kick Jey Uso out of the bloodline? I definitely see that, of course, being the long-term plan, because we're not going to be seeing Jey Uso turn heel, man. At this point, he's going to be a full-fledged babyface. But overall, man, when we saw this segment and he stated, hey, you're going to challenge Austin Theory for the U.S. title, I was immediately thinking, oh, wow, Austin Theory is actually going to be dropping that title to Jey Uso. But then I went on to think, hold on a minute, that's actually probably not going to happen, because what if Jey Uso loses? That could just further down the story of Jey Uso, and it only elevates his story much more further. And from what we saw in that main event, with Jimmy Uso getting involved, trying to save his own brother, and Solo Sikoa coming in, and Jimmy Uso trying to superkick Solo, but by accident he superkicks Jey. There's going to be some inner tension when it comes to Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso. We're just going to have to wait and see what he does, and things will be getting really interesting as Roman Reigns will be making his return next Friday on SmackDown. But overall, this was a great, great, great segment, and throughout the entirety of this whole show, you had Jey Uso, getting quote-unquote guidance from Sami Zayn in multiple backstage segments, telling him, hey, do what your heart tells you. Do not do what Roman Reigns tells you. All that type of stuff. Really, this whole SmackDown show was built as the Jey Uso show, and I absolutely loved that for what it was. But let's continue on with the show. And Jesus Christ, I have the AEW logo. Let's actually change that. It's actually a WWE photo. What the hell? But let's go back to the show. So after that, we got a Money in the Bank qualifying match. We got Santos Escobar versus Mustafa Ali. Overall, man, this was a great match. I mean, everybody knows the talent that both Santos Escobar and Mustafa Ali have. I think it's pretty obvious at this point. Mustafa Ali had a great match with Gunther at Night of Champions. Is he going anywhere near the IC title or the US title? Absolutely not. Santos Escobar, him being a part of the LWO has done nothing but wonders for him. He's definitely setting up to be a big-time player. But overall, man, this match was fantastic. But before the match even started, LA Knight comes out, and of course, LA Knight last week qualified, beating Montez Ford in the Money in the Bank qualifying match. Now he's going to be a part of the Money in the Bank ladder match, and during that match, Montez Ford was actually getting booed out of the building, and LA Knight was just super over with the crowd, man. I guarantee you by the end of this year, LA Knight is going to be, just one of the most popular acts on WWE television. But let's get through with the match. Both men are in the ring arguing, and then they start the match. We get a flying shoulder tackle by Santos Escobar, followed by a Hurricane Rana by Ali, taking Santos Escobar to the outside. Santos then drags Ali to the outside, and then he hits the overhand chop on Ali. Ali then fights back with the chop of his own. After that, Ali gets sent to the steel steps, but when he gets sent to the steel steps, he actually goes up and climbs the steps, and Santos is on the apron and ends up hitting the enziguri. After that, both men are on the apron, and then Santos pushes Ali onto the post. After that, we get a knee by Santos onto the midsection. After that, Santos ends up hitting a Hurricane Rana on Mustafa Ali on the floor. That looked absolutely brutal right there. That must have hurt real bad. After that, we get a cover engineer fall back in the ring by Santos. After that, Ali retreats back to the outside, but then Santos goes for a tope suicida on Mustafa Ali. After that, Santos goes back into the ring. He goes to the top, and he ends up hitting a crossbody on the outside. After that, once we're back from commercial break, both men are on the second rope. Mustafa Ali ends up hitting a moonsault on the outside, but then he lands on his feet. After that, Escobar goes for a double sledge attempt, and this was probably one of my favorite spots of the whole night. Escobar tried to go for the double sledge, but what happened is he landed in a dropkick on the outside by Mustafa Ali. Brutal. After that, Ali goes to the top. He tries to go for a 450, but instead he rolled through, and then he gets driven face first onto the turnbuckle head first. Then Santos Escobar ends up hitting the Poison Rana after that. He then drives his knee on Ali into the corner. He then picks him up, and then we get a waist lock by Ali. We get a roll-up, and we get a near fall. Then we get a tornado DDT off the second rope by Ali. After that, we get a cover by Mustafa Ali and a near fall. Ali is on the top, and then Santos ends up hitting the Enziguri. Once after that, we get a back elbow by Santos. He ends up picking up Ali. Ali tries to fight back, and what happens is Santos is on the second rope. He picks up Ali, and he ends up hitting the Phantom Driver. And after that, Santos Escobar gets the cover. 1, 2, 3. Santos Escobar wins, and he qualifies for the Money in the Bank ladder match. Overall, man, this is the type of match that we need to have for a qualifying match for a match like Money in the Bank, in my opinion. Because if you really think about it, the majority of these Money in the Bank qualifying matches, primarily for the women, are flat-out short matches, man. This is the type of match that needs to be had if you want to have a qualifying match for the Money in the Bank. I just want to pull that out there right there. But when it comes to the Money in the Bank ladder match, here are the men so far in the match. We got Ricochet, LA Knight, now, of course, Santos Escobar, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Overall, man, it's great. Also, I believe we're going to be having a Money in the Bank qualifying match. I believe it's between Matt Riddle and Damian Priest this coming Monday on Raw. And honestly, what it looks like is Cody Rhodes is not going to be involved in the Money in the Bank ladder match, which is going to be very weird to me because a lot of people were talking about how Cody Rhodes should be the guy to beat Roman Reigns, and he still is, but everybody wanted it to happen at SummerSlam. But from what it looks like when it comes to the whole Bloodline storyline escalating further down the line heading into the summer, it looks like we're not going to be getting Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, and they're just going to push that shit all the way through WrestleMania 40 next year, which honestly I do not think it's the right idea. Because, you know, from a year from now, we do not know whether the fans will still cheer for Cody Rhodes. Now, I honestly, you know, I believe Cody Rhodes will still relatively be, you know, super over. I mean, like, for God's sakes, he's still really over now. And I feel like there's no signs of the fans turning on him. But if you push Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes further down the line to WrestleMania 40, WWE could run the risk, kind of similar to what they did this year with somebody getting super over. For example, earlier this year we had Sami Zayn just becoming more popular than Cody Rhodes to the point where you had people actually want Sami Zayn to be the guy to beat Roman Reigns. And hopefully WWE does not run into that issue. But again, these are things that we need to talk about. But we're just going to have to wait and see what they do. That's the Money in the Bank ladder match for the men so far. And now let's move into the next segment. Jey Uso backstage, and Sami Zayn comes in. Sami Zayn says, "It's a pretty big night for you, Jey. It's a pretty big night. That time, you know, they had all together, it was some of the best times of his whole career. In a different world, they would probably still be having the best times of their career with Sami Zayn being the honorary Uso of the Bloodline. But of course, that couldn't happen because of one man. It's not Roman Reigns. It's because of the Tribal Chief. When the Tribal Chief takes over, bad things happen, and that is where the paranoia kicks in. It pushes him to go to the lengths that he shouldn't go, and it pushes him way too far. He did everything he could to put the family first. But Roman Reigns, of course, had him test his own loyalty constantly. And he has a big choice tonight. He wants to be the next Tribal Chief. Then maybe, if he wins, they will see that they need Jey Uso more than Jey Uso needs the Bloodline. But whatever happens, just know the consequences. Do what is in your heart, not what is being put in your ear." And Jey, after that, hears everything that Sami Zayn says. He doesn't even speak a word. And Jey Uso leaves to get ready for his match. So, wise words by the former honorary Uso, Sami Zayn. Of course, Sami Zayn is kind of a big part of this whole angle because he kind of caused this whole thing. And it's great to see, man. You know, Jey Uso and Sami Zayn giving Jey Uso advice. You know, throughout these past couple of weeks, you would see this with Sami Zayn giving advice to Jey Uso, and Kevin Owens would be pissed off and all that type of stuff. A lot of people are saying Could this be a scenario of Kevin Owens turning on Sami Zayn? Honestly, I have no idea, man. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I'd probably tell you, no, it's fucking stupid, but what if they are going in that route? And eventually, if they go further down with that particular story, you can have a feud between Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, but in the meantime, you would also have a, you know, kind of a team up with Jey Uso and Sami Zayn. These are just thoughts of me thinking long-term further down the line, but again, very interesting stuff happening. After that, we got the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn. This segment was kind of weird, relatively short. They immediately get interrupted by, of course, the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Shayna says that, you know, they want to call themselves the Women's Tag Team Champions, but she has a question. How much do they know about the history of those titles that they have with them over there? See, she is the reason why those titles were created. Those Shayna commemorative tag titles are hers. And then Ronda says that they have been running through this division so fast that they will end up so hungry soon. I swear to God, Ronda Rousey does not sound genuine at all. It made her realize that this division isn't big enough for the two of them. They want theirs. Then Isla Dawn says that they want to face them in a unification match. Fine. They accept. And then after that, a brawl breaks loose. Shayna Baszler runs into a kick by Isla Dawn. Shayna then comes back while Ronda gets taken to the outside. And then we get a slam by Shayna Baszler by Alba Fyre. And we get a knee by Isla Dawn. So it looks like we are going to be unifying the Women's Tag Team Championships. Honestly, with all due respect, I could give less of a single shit. First off, it made absolutely no sense for you to call up Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn, the current NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, up to SmackDown as the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have a unification match for both of those titles. Keep in mind, I believe this is their only second appearance on SmackDown ever since they got called up from the draft 6 weeks ago. And all they've been airing was video packages of Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn. Now, when it comes to the Women's Tag Team Championships and then unifying them, honestly, I do not watch NXT, but from what it looks like, the NXT Tag Team titles were kind of rendered useless, so there was no reason behind those championships. But I think it's pretty much safe to say that Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn are going to be basically dropping those titles to Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey. But could this be a step forward in WWE finally actually giving a damn about the women's tag team division? I mean, Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn are an actual women's tag team. Kaden Carter and Katana Chance, of course, they wrestled Shayna and Ronda this past Monday on Raw. And it was a relatively good match. I mean, the match lasted roughly around 7 to 8 minutes, less than 10 minutes. But it was a great match, and it showcased Kaden Carter and Katana Chance very, very, very well. Could this be a step into the right direction regarding the Women's Tag Team Championships? I have absolutely no idea. But honestly, I have no faith in WWE regarding the direction of those titles because, for years, ever since they debuted back in 2019, those titles meant absolutely nothing. And even now, all the tag teams that, would compete for those titles would just be makeshift tag teams. How many freaking partners would Raquel Rodriguez, switch over? First it was Liv Morgan, and then Liv unfortunately got injured, and now it looked like she was teaming up with Shotzi Blackheart, and all of that type of stuff. The women's tag team title scene is just horrific. At the end of the day, retire those titles, but I do not see WWE doing that anytime soon, and we're going to be getting a unification with the WWE and NXT women's tag team titles. So hopefully that is a step in the right direction, but I have absolutely no faith in WWE to, make those titles more important than they quote-unquote already are. Keep in mind, they were never important at all. After that, we got a video package of the late Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik unfortunately passed away a couple of days ago. Very, very, very good video package. Well done. My thoughts and prayers go out to the Iron Sheik and his family because, he passed away a couple of days ago, and he was a very integral part in the wrestling business, one of the best heels in the business, especially in the early 80s. After that, we got our second Money in the Bank qualifying match, and in this case, it's with the women, the first of two women's matches for Money in the Bank qualifying matches. We got Bayley versus Michin Mia Yim. This match did not last long whatsoever. Bayley immediately goes after Michin. After that, she drives her face first onto the announce table. After that, Michin gets taken back into the ring, and then Bayley dances in front of AJ Styles, who was on commentary, by the way. Michin ends up going for a tope suicida. After that, we got a bunch of roll-up attempts by Michin. After that, she hits repeated right hands. After that, we get a Hurricane Rana by Mia Yim. After that, she goes for the Tornado DDT, and we get a cover and a near fall. After that, Bayley is on the apron and then runs into a boot by Michin, but then Bayley is on the back of the apron, or I should say is back on the apron. After that, Bayley pulls the hair of Michin. She sends her to the turnbuckle and ends up hitting the rose plant. And we get a cover, and Bayley gets the win, and she's going to be involved in the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. After the match, AJ, of course, was on commentary, and he's just like, damn it, Michin lost. After that, Scarlett, out of nowhere, walks in front of AJ Styles, and she blows red dust onto the face of AJ Styles. And behind him, Karrion Kross applies the cross jacket behind AJ. Of course, they've been airing video packages of Karrion Kross kind of targeting AJ Styles, and it looks like this feud is going to be escalating further down the line. And most likely, we're going to be having a match between both men, a one-on-one match, because we're going to be getting a tag team match, I believe, next week on SmackDown with Michin and AJ Styles taking on Karrion Kross and Scarlett on the show. Hopefully this is going to be leading towards a one-on-one match, maybe at Money in the Bank. I have absolutely no idea, but we'll have to wait and see. After that, Bianca Belair is backstage with, of course, Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce wants to get her hands on Asuka, and Bianca says once she gets her hand, she will take that title away from her. But Adam Pearce then tells her, don't do it tonight, just tonight. She won't get involved since, of course, she has a rematch, and Bianca accepts. After that, we have Asuka's championship title presentation. Adam Pearce is in the ring, and he brings out Asuka, and he introduces Asuka to the brand new WWE Women's Championship. They're no longer going to be calling it the SmackDown Women's Championship now. Now it kind of makes sense as to why they kind of flip-flop the titles regarding the women, because if you really think about it, the Raw Women's title, it was actually first introduced back in WrestleMania 32 back in 2016, and that was before the brand split, and it was just called the WWE Women's Championship. The SmackDown Women's title was introduced months later in the build-up to Backlash 2016 on the SmackDown side of things. So now we get why they kind of flip-flop the titles, but I feel like right now it's a little bit too late, considering the fact that, if you think about it, the draft happened like 5-6 weeks ago. So the fact that they are introducing a title now is just absolutely ridiculous. But when it comes to the design of the belt, I'm not going to complain as much as I did last week. I thought last week's design was completely lazy on WWE's end. They are so lazy when it comes to their title designs. Look, I understand the idea of branding with the logo and all that stuff, but there is so much better creative ways and so much creative designs that you can have the logo plastered in the center of the main plate. The fact that they just had the same design just with the gold background on the behind it is just fucking ridiculous. But it is what it is. I'm not going to be complaining because as soon as they announced this, I already knew it's going to be the same design as Roman's belt, so I can't really get upset with that. But as soon as Asuka gets her title put around her waist, as soon, bro, they wasted no fucking time. Charlotte Flair's music plays, and she comes out, and Adam says she kind of needs to get in line. And Charlotte says, well, excuse me, I don't wait in line. She made the line. Woo! After that, she says, hi, Asuka. Nobody respects you more than me. She knows what she can do, but she wants that championship. Oh, yeah, we all know you fucking want that title. So she is challenging her for that championship. After that, Asuka speaks in Japanese. Asuka says she accepts, and Charlotte tells Adam Pearce when he makes it make sure she puts that old title well around her waist as well. After that, Asuka tries to go after Charlotte, but then Charlotte ends up hitting the boot and Asuka retreats. All right, Charlotte Flair makes her return. What are my thoughts on this? As soon, bro, it's like WWE did not waste any fucking time with this, bro. As soon as they introduced that belt, Charlotte Flair's music played, bro. They did not hesitate at all. They didn't hesitate at all, bro. They were like, you know what? Fuck you. We're going to shove Charlotte down our throats once again. What are my thoughts on Charlotte Flair making her return? I could care less. I'm not the biggest Charlotte Flair fan, if you guys know. I think she's great in the ring, but I'm not really the biggest Charlotte Flair guy to begin with. They did book a match with Asuka and Charlotte 3 weeks time, and I believe that is the Go Home SmackDown before Money in the Bank, and that is going to be at the London O2 Arena. I don't want to sit here and say that they're going to have Asuka drop the title and give it to Charlotte, but if they do that, man, it's going to be a terrible, terrible, terrible decision on WWE's end because, I mean, first off, Asuka's title run did not even last long whatsoever, and they're just going to put the belt on Charlotte. I don't know what the hell they're going to be doing, but I pray to God that Charlotte is not anywhere near the title scene after that. I mean, they're probably going to have her win the title somehow, but, you know, the booking of the women's division hasn't been really good, to be quite honest with you, in WWE. The same thing is with AEW. AEW, you know, just... they have their own problems when it comes to the women's division. But Jesus Christ, man, Charlotte Flair, like, they waited until now. As soon as they introduced that title, like, hey, let's bring out Charlotte Flair. As soon as Charlotte Flair came out, you were like, oh, shit, she is now going to be wrestling for the women's title. And unfortunately, she is now. We're just going to have to wait and see what they do. But personally, I do not want Charlotte Flair to go anywhere near that title. I feel like Asuka should have a whole run with that women's championship and just go on a fucking tear. But it looks like that is not going to be the case 3 weeks' time. We're just going to have to wait and see what they do. But I am not in favor of this decision whatsoever at all. Those are my thoughts on that. All right, let's move on. After that, we got Jey Uso backstage. Paul Heyman comes in and says he got him. That was slicked. He left him hanging, but no worries. That makes for good television. His whole life has been a cliffhanger, and he asks Jey for his passport, and he says he will fly on the tribal chief's private jet all the way to Money in the Bank. And he also needs his suit measurement because they will have a triple celebration. The tribal chief, of course, will be here live next week on SmackDown. And, of course, the new U.S. champion, the right-hand man, Jey Uso, will be in his corner. That is a celebration. And it's a celebration. Also, it's a public acknowledgement that Jey Uso shall be groomed by Roman Reigns as the next tribal chief. And Jey says, count me in. But I don't know why he's so happy, because if he is in the bloodline, that means you out of the bloodline. Yeet. And then leaves. Okay. That was an interesting line by Jey Uso. If I'm in the bloodline, that means you out of the bloodline. Yeet. Interesting stuff, man. Roman Reigns, of course, is going to be on SmackDown next week. And honestly, man, you know, when it comes to, you know, the segment of the celebration, you know, could that be the eventual night that Jey Uso leaves the bloodline? And maybe the roles could be reversed. It may not be Roman Reigns or Solo Sikoa turning on Jey Uso. What if they pull a Batista, you know, finding out everything, you know, about the bullshit that they did with Evolution on the build-up to WrestleMania 21? What if they have Jey Uso being the one to go against Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa? I don't know what they're going to be doing next week, but next week is looking very, very, very interesting. I mean, I always throw the word interesting because, again, when it comes to the Bloodline, everything just comes off as so unpredictable, man. And that is a good thing. You know, everything comes off as unpredictable. And that makes for good television at the end of the day. You know, top tier storytelling at the end of the day just makes the viewer 100% invested. And right now they're telling the story of Jey Uso because this whole story started with Jey Uso. And now they're really going full-fledged with the story and they're elevating it to the next level. So now, I mean, you know, it's just great stuff, man. Great stuff. After that, Adam Pearce is on the phone backstage. Bianca Belair comes in and says he will figure it out. And Bianca says he better figure it out because when she gets her lick back, she will be justified. After that, we got our second Money in the Bank qualifying match regarding the men. We got Butch versus Baron Corbin. Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes. Of course, Carmelo Hayes is the current NXT champion. They're ringside in the front row. Corbin gets the microphone, and he says he hopes that both of them are enjoying the show. He will put another one when he beats Butch and go on to win Money in the Bank again. He is surprised that they showed up. Of course, he mentions what he did to NXT, but I believe he beat Trick Williams. And after that, he says, sit down like a fan, like he is, and see him punch his ticket to Money in the Bank. After that, the match starts. We get an enziguri by Butch, followed by another running enziguri again. Butch ends up hitting the Tornado DDT. After that, we get a cover by Butch and a near fall. Butch goes to the top, and then he lands on his feet with the moonsault. And then we get a backbreaker by Corbin, but then Corbin goes for repeated right hands. Butch then counters the deep six into the enziguri. Butch then targets the fingers of Corbin, but then runs into a right hand. After that, Corbin tries to go for a chokeslam, but then Butch ends up rolling him up for the cover and wins the match, and now Butch is going to be a part of the Money in the Bank ladder match. After that, Corbin gets in the face of Trick Williams, but Carmelo Hayes, who is the current NXT champion, ends up hitting a right. After that, the referees come in to separate everybody. After that, Butch goes for a backstage interview, and he says he's coming home and he is taking that briefcase because every time when the Brawling Brutes are back in the UK, it is fight night. After that, Corbin comes in. He ends up complaining, but Cameron Grimes, Mr. To the Moon, comes in and attacks him. After that, we get our second Money in the Bank qualifying match for the women. We got Shotzi Blackheart taking on Damage Control's EO Skye. A relatively short match, 110%. Bayley's on the outside. We get a cover by EO and a near fall. We then get a knee by Shotzi on EO, but then we get a suplex in the corner. After that, she runs into a boot. EO then off the second rope hits the double stomp onto the arm of Shotzi. At this point, EO is in control. Then EO misses a drop off the top rope, but then Shotzi ends up going for the running bulldog. After that, Shotzi goes for the suplex and takes out EO into the corner. After that, she hits the tope suicida on EO on the outside. Once we're back into the ring, Shotzi is on the top rope, but then EO comes in. We then get a front suplex by Shotzi, dropping EO down to the mat. But what happens is Bayley, who is on the outside, actually ends up interfering in the match, and she pushes Shotzi down to the mat, which leads to Io Shirai going to the top rope and hitting a moonsault. We get a cover, 1, 2, 3, and EO Skye ends up qualifying for the Money in the Bank ladder match. And now, when it comes to the Money in the Bank ladder match, we got Zelina Vega, Becky Lynch, Bayley, EO Skye, and Zoe Stark being a part of the match for the women. It's going to be a great ladder match. And, you know, when it comes to Money in the Bank, I've constantly stated this over and over and over again, but the only two people that should win Money in the Bank, and there's no buts or ifs, the only two people that should win Money in the Bank are LA Knight and EO Skye. Number one, when it comes to LA Knight, at the end of the day, is just getting so over with the audience. If he doesn't win Money in the Bank, what the hell are you going to be doing with LA Knight? Put him in the mid-card scene? Maybe. But let's be honest. LA Knight should get that, just push straight away. But when the only concern when it comes to LA Knight holding that Money in the Bank is there's no fucking chance in hell, no pun intended, that he is going to be beating Roman Reigns. But when it comes to the Money in the Bank, you could easily cash in on a guy like Seth Rollins who was on Raw because the Money in the Bank counts for both brands. LA Knight, if he ever wins Money in the Bank, which honestly I do see him winning, is most likely going to be holding on to that briefcase for a long-ass time and for a whole year. Now, when it comes to EO Skye's case, EO Skye 100% should be the winner of Money in the Bank because I've constantly came on this show and stated Damage Control is a failed experiment. It just didn't work, and EO Skye is so much better without Damage Control than being a part of Damage Control, and I feel like they're setting the stage for Damage Control to basically split up, and EO Skye can just immediately go on her own and win Money in the Bank. That is what I see happening, but when it comes to both of the men's and the women's ladder matches, at the end of the day, there's only two winners of the Money in the Bank, and it's LA Knight and EO Skye. End off. That's all it is. But let's continue on with the show. Austin Theory is in a backstage interview, talks about how he was the last one to find out that Jey is going to be challenging him for the United States Championship. He says that Roman Reigns pulls all the strings and he doesn't make excuses. All he gets is victories. So tonight, he will send him back to the Bloodline, the failure that he is, and he will beat him. And just like he beat John Cena at WrestleMania, if Paul Heyman wants to look for a new client, he should check out Austin Theory live. After that, Sami Zayn is in a backstage interview. Kevin Owens comes in and he asks him if he talked to Jey Uso. Sami says that he doesn't know. KO says, we can focus on the tag team titles now, right? And then Pretty Deadly come in and they talk about them defending those titles. And then the Brawling Brutes come in. And then the Good Brothers come in. And then the LWO come in. And then the Street Profits come in. And immediately, Kevin Owens just goes on his weekly outbursts. And he's just pissed. I was like, why the fuck is everybody here? Why the fuck is everybody here? Oh my God. If you want a challenge, they want a shot at the tag team titles, blah, blah, blah. And then Sami Zayn calms him down. And he says, blood pressure, blood pressure, blood pressure. That had me laugh my ass off. After that, Adam Pearce says there will be a gauntlet match next week. After that, we get a video package of Grayson Waller. And next week, it's going to be the Grayson Waller effect with Charlotte Flair. In 3 weeks' time, it's going to be Charlotte versus Asuka for the women's title at O2 Arena in London. After that, in 2 weeks, there is going to be the women's tag team title unification match between, of course, Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn taking on Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. And then next week, we're going to be getting Cross and Scarlett taking on AJ Styles and Michin, plus a gauntlet match for the number one contender for the tag titles. And, of course, Roman Reigns is going to be making his return. They're like, Roman Reigns returns after like 1 fucking week. That's hilarious, man. After that, we got our main event. We got Jey Uso taking on Austin Theory for the United States Championship. This was a pretty good match overall. It was a good match, but it wasn't a relatively long match. The match was relatively short if you really think about it, but really the main event wasn't really regarding the match. It was regarding what happened after the match. Both men lock up. We get a side headlock by Theory, followed by a shoulder tackle on Theory, or I should say by Theory on Jey. After that, Jey takes him down. We then get a clothesline on Theory onto the outside. Jey goes to the outside, and then he sends Theory onto the announce table. After that, once we're back from commercial break, we get a side headlock by Austin Theory. Jey Uso fights back, and then both men exchange shots. Jey Uso ends up going for a pump-up neckbreaker, and then we get a cover by Jey into near fall. Jey then gets dropped face first onto the turnbuckle, and then we get a rolling shotgun dropkick by Theory. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. We then get a shot to the back of Jey by Theory, but then Theory picks him up, and then he drops him down to the mat. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. Theory ends up picking up Jey, but then Jey escapes. He ends up hitting the super kick, and then we get a boot by Theory, but then Jey ends up hitting back the Enziguri. After that, we get a left hand by Theory. Then Jey fights back with the kick. After that, the referee, after Jey hits the kick on Theory, the referee gets knocked down. After that, what happens is Jey goes to the top, and he hits the Uso splash, and he basically had the match won, but, of course, there was no referee. After that, we get a cover on Theory, but, of course, the referee isn't there. Pretty Deadly, who have been, in the corner of Austin Theory for the past couple of weeks. Pretty Deadly come in and interfere, but what happens? His brother Jimmy, who got hit with the Samoan spike last week in that closing segment on SmackDown. Jey Uso comes in and makes the save. He attacks pretty deadly. After that, Solo Sikoa immediately comes in and takes out Jey Uso. He tries to go for the spike, but what happens is Jey Uso gets up and blocks. He blocks Solo Sikoa from hitting the spike on his own twin brother. After that, Jimmy tries to super kick Solo, but what happens? Solo ducks and super kicks Jey instead. Holy fucking shit. After that, Theory is back into the ring. He covers Jey, wins the match, and Austin Theory retains the United States Championship. After that, Paulie Dangerously, the wise man, Paul Heyman, and Solo Sikoa are on the outside of the ring staring at Jey Uso. Jimmy Uso is just trying to explain things to Jey Uso, and what happens is Jey pushes Jimmy, and Jey retreats, and he looks at Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa. Paul Heyman immediately tells Jey Uso, "I'm sorry." And then Paul Heyman is on the phone. Jey Uso walks off, and he calls Roman Reigns, and the show ends. Holy shit. A lot of things escalated in this main event, per se, for the U.S. title. Now, at the top of this review, I told you guys that I immediately thought that on this show, Jey Uso was going to beat Austin Theory for the U.S. title. But, of course, I later on thought, hey, man, if Jey Uso won this match, it would have been great. But then where do we go on from there? If Jey Uso lost this match like he did, it's only going to further elevate the story of Jey Uso leaving the bloodline. And that is exactly what happened in this segment. Of course, Paul Heyman has that look and says, I'm sorry, Jey. I'm sorry, Jey. I'm sorry, Jey. But then Paul Heyman gets on the phone and calls Roman Reigns. What the hell is he saying? I have absolutely no idea. That's been a common occurrence throughout the past couple of months. But what can we expect for the future months with this storyline heading into Money in the Bank and heading into the summer, of course, where we have SummerSlam? Now, it honestly can go many different ways. You know, of course, Jimmy Uso was the one that pulled the trigger. I've always stated, even when Sami Zayn was still, you know, a part of the group, and then, of course, he got excluded out of the group at the Royal Rumble, that Jey Uso is the catalyst to all of this whole thing, because he was the guy that faced Roman, and he was the guy that fell in line back in the fall of 2020 during the pandemic. Now, when it comes to Jimmy Uso, you know, Jimmy Uso throughout this entirety of this whole story, you know, he was kind of the chill dude, but now they're kind of giving Jimmy his own story. And Jimmy, honestly, you know, a lot of people are saying, you know, could we be seeing a future title match between Jimmy and Roman Reigns, maybe at Money in the Bank? I have absolutely no idea, man. Could we go down that road? Maybe. I hear some other people saying, hey, what if maybe next week on SmackDown, we have the whole celebration that they're going to be having with Roman Reigns, since he's going to be making his return to the show, even though he's only been off for a whole week. And, you know, it leads to Jey Uso leaving the bloodline, because that's what it looks like it's going to be happening. And it's going to be having a match between Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso, or I should say a match between the Usos taking on Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns at Money in the Bank. And then it can further lead us to Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. I don't know. But the beauty of this whole storyline is every week it keeps us asking us these questions. It makes us ask ourselves these questions because we honestly do not know what the hell is going to be happening. And we all know Jey is the catalyst to this whole thing. Now, in regards to SummerSlam, I know a lot of people have been talking about Cody Rhodes, you know, possibly beating Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. And honestly, I want that to happen too. But from what it looks like, this storyline is taking a turn to, you know, the idea of Cody Rhodes challenging Roman Reigns for the championships at SummerSlam. The chances of that happening are getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. Like, it looks like we're not going to be having that match at SummerSlam from what it looks like, what is escalating in the storyline. And honestly, if WWE honestly is going to be having a main event for SummerSlam, I definitely see them doing Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns, because right now Roman Reigns is just in with a lot of shit regarding bloodline stuff that I think they can't turn away from that. But then, unfortunately, it sucks for Cody Rhodes, because now we're going to have to wait a whole year, and we're going to have to wait till WrestleMania next year to have Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns. And unfortunately, when it comes to that match, we do not know how over Cody Rhodes is still going to be as we head towards WrestleMania next year. I may be wrong. I mean, right now, Cody Rhodes, and I talked about this earlier in the review, Cody Rhodes is still relatively over with the crowd. He may still relatively be over when we head towards WrestleMania next year, but we do not know for sure. And also, WWE could possibly run into a scenario in which somebody else could get so hot to the point where they overtake Cody Rhodes in terms of popularity. That exact thing happened earlier this year with Sami Zayn. And, you know, we all know what happened there. But we're just going to have to wait and see what WWE does. But nonetheless, I'm invested, fully invested when it comes to this storyline. Jey Uso, of course, he is groomed to be the next tribal chief. And next week, Roman Reigns is going to be making his return. And hopefully that's going to be the exact night where maybe Jey Uso is probably going to be either excluded or leaves the bloodline. But he is the catalyst of this whole thing. But I genuinely do believe they're going to start with Jimmy first, and then they're going to lead to Jey. But things are getting very, very, very interesting, and I'm 100% down for it. But yeah, that is my SmackDown review from June 9th, 2023. We definitely talked about a lot of things right here on the show. Overall thoughts, though, we had a lot of Money in the Bank qualifying matches. Of course, we are headed towards Money in the Bank in 3 weeks' time. And when it comes to that, honestly, I genuinely believe, you know, the only real thing of importance was Jey Uso. That was really where this whole thing was kind of focused on. But overall, it wasn't really a bad show. I mean, Santos, Escobar, and Mustafa Ali had a great match, but nonetheless, everything else wasn't really important. It was really the Jey Uso show regarding SmackDown. But yeah, that was my SmackDown review from June 9th, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Push that bell for notifications and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast, right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the friggin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys this weekend for episode 17 of the Wrestle Havoc podcast. I'll see you guys later.